In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to update the text, that's copy, in HTML5 banners provided in your Global Asset Partnership Program package files. In the first section, I'll explain how to use Photoshop to update the text in the designs, and in the second section, I will explain how to export the new copy from Photoshop to update the HTML5 banner builds. If you are a graphic designer, I would recommend skipping to the second section after the introduction. But if you are new or unfamiliar with Photoshop, I recommend you follow along all the way through. Just a quick couple of disclaimers. I'm assuming that you've already watched our intro to the GAP program and the short explanation of what's included within your GAP files video. If you haven't had a chance to watch them yet, there are links below in the description to those videos, or you can find them on the GAP program website. Also, it's important to note that updating copy is different than adding copy. If you've received an HTML5 banner without a price point, for example, or a product shot, or a legal line that you would like those components added to your banners, that is not covered in this tutorial, and you'll need to contact your partnership rep at the Bannermen or contact us via our website and we'll be able to help you out. Before we begin, let's go through some reasons why you might want to update the copy. The most obvious reason is that your HTML5 banner and static templates were provided in English and you need to translate them to a different language. But it might be also to update price points or legal copy or product descriptions. If you need to do any of those things, this is the tutorial for you. A very important note is if you're updating any asset in your HTML5 banners, you will need to update the backup images as properly package the HTML files before you supply them to your media agency for trafficking. Please see the link below to find a tutorial for those two processes, and those videos can also be found on our website. So, to update the text or copy in your GAP files, you will need the package GAP files, access to Adobe Photoshop. If you don't have access to Photoshop, please contact your TBM rep and they will be able to provide you Figma files instead. Wherever possible, we recommend that the design updates, including the copy text changes, be done by a graphic designer. Right, so let's get started. I'm going to go through the various steps that you need to go through to update the text in your HTML5 files leveraging Photoshop. Right, so step one, before you start editing the files, you need to ensure you have the proper fonts. In some cases, you might find the necessary fonts in your package files. In other cases, you might need to request the fonts from your brand representatives. Step two is to find the HTML5 designs. Just a quick recommendation, you might want to duplicate the Photoshop file and make changes in your duplicate only. That way, if you do make any mistakes, you always have the original to refer to. Step three, then just double click on the PSD file and it will open in Photoshop. This is where you want to make sure that you have the appropriate fonts installed. If you have the appropriate fonts installed, you should be able to open the PSD normally. If not, you might receive a warning that describes the font you are missing. If you've been provided the font in your package files, you'll need to install these fonts on your machine. We always recommend that you get help from a graphic designer in these steps if you're not a graphic designer yourself. A quick legal note is TBM is not responsible for licensing of fonts. If you're unsure whether you have the appropriate online licensing of the font and that you're allowed to use it, please check with your brand. Step four, let's review the artboards inside the Photoshop file. With each banner, inside these artboards, you will find all the assets organized by frame. You can use the little eye icon to go through the frames one at a time to visualize the animations in the final HTML5 banner. A keen observer might notice the pixel size of the designs is double the pixel size of the HTML5 banner. So for an example, in a design labeled 300 by 600, it might actually be 600 by 1200 pixels. This is what is called retina designs, and it is a very important feature in creating high resolution assets that display on high resolution screens such as mobile and Mac. Step 5. You'll be updating the text for each banner one banner at a time. So just double check you've got the correct PSD open for the banner you want to update. Then step 6, simply select the text tool from the side column bar in Photoshop. Step 7, using the text tool, click on the text you would like to update. When you're updating multiple lines of copy across various frames, we always recommend you start with frame 1. So like any good word pressing tool, you can select all the copy and delete, or you can select and copy and paste from a Word doc. From the most part, Gap assets are designed in such a way that you should be able to replace the copy without needing to adjust the font size or layout in any way. But if you've replaced the copy and it does not fit or look right in the required space, you can adjust the font size or the positioning of the copy itself. We do recommend that font changes or layout changes be reviewed by a trained graphic designer. If you would like any advice on how to lay out the new text, just please contact your partnership rep or get hold of us through the website. And then finally, step 8, save your work. You can then go through steps 5 to 8 for all the banner sizes to get all the copy updated. Now that you've updated all the copy, let's talk through exporting the assets themselves to the HTML5 banners. Once again, I'm going to go through this step by step so it's easy to follow. Right, so step 1, find the HTML5 build you need to update. Again, it might be a good idea to duplicate the HTML5 banner files and make the changes to the duplicate file only. That way, if you make any mistakes, you always have the original to refer to. Step 2, double-click on the index.html5 file to review the animations and confirm everything is displaying correctly. Step 3, review the images in the image folder so you understand what each asset is called. You can notice that even though the copy takes up a small amount of space on the screen, the actual image in the image folder is the exact same size as the banner. For example, the copy might be only taking up 100 pixels width here on the screen, but the actual size of the asset is still the full size of the banner. This is because we save out each line of copy as a PNG background, as a PNG with a transparent background at the full size of the banner. And we do this for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is fonts can be very heavy from a file size perspective. And that means that if we were to load in some brand fonts, this would take the banner way over file size. Saving the copy as PNG images means that we can use these fonts without having to load in the fonts themselves. Another reason is fonts can actually display really differently on different browsers. But if we save them as an image, we always guarantee that the copy looks exactly the same no matter what browser you're viewing it in. And finally, and probably most importantly, is saving out the asset at the full size of the banner with a transparent background guarantees that the text will be placed pixel perfect to match your designs, without needing to make any adjustments to the code. This way of doing things means that you do not need to hire a developer or additional design resource to update your HTML5 banners, and this is one of the central aspects of TBM's Global Asset Partnership Program. Step 4. Decide which size you want to start with and find the corresponding HTML5 banner and the PSD design. Now you might notice the images have the exact same name regardless of what size you're in, so just be sure you don't accidentally replace the assets in the wrong banner size. Just pay close attention to the pixel size in the folder name throughout this process. Step 5. Locate the layer with the corresponding text that you would like to replace. We're starting with copy 01. Step 6. Hide all the other layers from the banner by toggling the little eye icon next to the folders for all the frames and layers. Just be sure that only the necessary layer is visible. Otherwise, you might accidentally save a copy asset with an extra logo, for example. Step 7. As you can see, now everything else has been hidden and we're only left with the copy we want to update. To save this, the simplest way is to save out a PNG in Photoshop using the Save for Web function. You can do this by clicking on File and scrolling down to Export and then using Save for Web. Step 8. This opens up the Photoshop's Asset Exporter and you can see that we've been left with the text empty on a full-size blank PNG background. Step 9. We then hit Save and navigate to the image folder and click on the copy 1 PNG so we can overwrite it and then click Save. If we then double click on the index file, you can see that the copy has now been updated, and it really is that simple to update the copy in the banner. Then for all your other updates, just repeat steps 4 to 9 and you can go through and update the copy on all of your banners. And finally, again, just as a quick reminder that before you supply your banners to your media agency, you will need to also update the backup images and package the banners properly. You can find tutorials on how to handle each of these processes in the description below, and they are also on our website.